All right, it is the 10th of July. 10th of July, 2022. And Chuck and I are out here for the, I guess you could call it Runners Reunion.
I think Runners Reunion 2022.
And it consists of some of the better runners from Southern California who, I'm not sure what the criteria on is to...
I think it started out for the high school. And pretty much it was the high school milers and 2 milers that were out here, and it's grown.
But what's the area, the
Southern California.
Geographically, Southern California. But very intense, because if you look at the map of Southern California, you've got the LA area and all the towns, as well as San Diego.
Correct.
But you grew up in El Cajon.
El Cajon.
Were you born there?
I was born in LA, but my parents lived in San Diego, but that's my hometown.
That's your hometown, so high school, Grossmont High School.
Correct. And
then you went to Grossmont JC for a couple years before you went to CU.
Correct.
But your high school credentials are less than impressive. We were talking about like a 4:36 mile, 1:58 for 800 meters, and 9:36 for 2 miles. At the time, were they running meters or were they running miles?
Everything was miles.
It was miles.
Mm-hmm.
But Chuck, how did you do competitively at CIF and so forth?
Never got out.
You never got out?
Of section. No, never did. I finished 5th in our section in the mile.
And what did you have to do? Top 3?
You had to be top 3, but you had to run. I think 4:13 got out.
4:13.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's going to win state championships in most.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think Tom Hunt won it that year, and then Jay Woods was 2nd. Hendricks from Crawford.
Yeah.
He was 3rd, and then I got edged out by my teammate Paul Nouveau.
And
so
I was 5th. Tom Hunt, where did he go to high school?
Patrick Henry.
Patrick Henry High School.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal runner.
It was a rival high school. We're only 3 miles apart schools.
What would you say was your best performance in high school?
I would say my league finals. I won it, the mile.
You did win league
Yes.
finals. Okay. And cross country?
Cross country was for guys that they had a big set. Cross country was tough, and we just used cross country as a conditioning, putting a base in for track.
So when you went to Grossmont, you improved. How much did you improve?
A lot.
Quite a bit, right?
Yeah, a lot.
And is it because you got stronger, or tell me how you explain that?
I grew 2.5 inches summer going in, and then I wasn't going to run. And I got a call from Coach Larson, and I got a call from Dennis's dad, got a call from Dennis, and I thought I'd go run. You know, it was a great door that was opened.
You saved him from Dairy Queen.
Yeah, I was working at Dairy Queen. And I was getting ready to go fishing. I wanted to be a fisherman.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. So tell me about your times, your performances at Grossmont.
Not real strong in cross country at all.
Uh-huh.
And I was consider myself a track athlete, but I was a miler, and I made it to the state meet as a freshman, and I finished 4th. And then the following year, everything took off. My sophomore year, it was my year.
But even finishing 4th as a freshman is very competitive.
Yeah.
Which is a huge jump from your high school days.
It was an awful lot. I ran 3:48 and 1,500 meters as a freshman. So I don't. What's that, Dennis? 4.05, 4:06 miles.
As a freshman, excellent. Like 4:05, 4:06.
So I went from 4:16 to 4:06 in a year.
And what about your 800 meter time?
800 meters, I ended up running 1:52.
So that's actually maybe a better time than 4:05, 4:06, although they're comparable. And did you run any other distances besides 800 and 1,500
I
slash
flew
mile?
with a marathon. I ran one as a sophomore.
So now tell me.
No, I ran the first one as a freshman. Just wanted to be like Dennis and Kirk, so I ran a marathon.
So how did you work that in, and how did Larson view that, running a marathon off season?
There was no problem. Cross country was up. It was over in November.
Wasn't Larson on his bike?
Larson would ride the bike next to us, and was going to run Mission Bay. And at 20 miles, I was in a pretty good spot, and I passed Eric Holst.
So a lot of guys were running the marathon.
Yeah, well, there was one. That's all we had was Mission Bay.
Mission Bay.
Yeah.
But it was common for junior college guys and high school people, like Dennis was running marathons in high school,
Yeah.
Freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not uncommon, it would be somewhat uncommon in the rest of the country.
I would say so. I mean, Frank had already won the Olympics.
Yes.
So everybody wanted to be like Frank.
So what was your time that year as a freshman at Rosemont?
I ran 2:28:03.
Did you train specifically for it?
No, my longest run up to date for there was 8 miles. 8 miles. I had to take a week before everybody did a 12-mile run.
Uh-huh.
I think I brought up the rear. I said, "This no way."
But 2:28 is a very respectable time for anybody. But that means you had to beat a lot of people who you were maybe not expecting to beat.
Yeah.
And they weren't expecting you to beat them. What was their reaction to you running so well in the marathon?
Very supportive.
Very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic.
And if I can, it's almost like it wasn't a surprise, because he had good strength, good speed, and it's not that he wasn't taking it seriously, but he went into it really relaxed.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's
My goal was to finish without walking. That was first goal. Second goal was to, if we made it, was got to go under 3 hours.
okay,
Yeah.
which you did in spades. But tell me about the recovery. How did?
Oh, I've never been so sore in my life the next morning. It was my arms more than my legs.
Uh-huh.
But I was real sore. I remember that morning waking up. Oh God, I didn't. It took about 2 weeks to recover.
I was going to say.
It really did take about 2 weeks.
But when did the season come up? Mission Bay was what time?
January.
January.
And then we always ran one indoor meet. We were fortunate. We got to run one indoor meet, and so we went back to the mile indoors at San Diego, Jack in the Box games.
And how'd you do in that?
First year, I think I finished 4th. Kirk won it. Kirk won it. I think Kirk won 4:07. I think I was around the 4:10, probably 4:14 or
Yeah,
range.
respectable, very respectable time.
But there was no speed,
no training.
No, it was just a thing we got to do every year.
And
If
then
you got invited to it.
When the spring season rolled around, you were ready to race though. Outdoor track and field.
It was always a build-up, getting ready to make it all the way to the state meet. It was just a gradual build.
And how'd that your sophomore year go?
Around 154 and a half.
And how'd you place at state?
I finished 4th in the JC.
So very competitive.
Yes.
And your mile time was what?
Well, it was 1,500.
1,500 meters.
Yeah, they had converted that year. That was the first year to metric, and I ran 3:48.
Okay, yeah. Now, along the way, because it's a JC 2-year program, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you start thinking about your running career beyond
Never
JC?
did.
You never did.
No, I was still going to go fishing.
You're still going to go fishing.
Yeah, but I had run a lot with Kirk, and Kirk went to Colorado. But I don't have any recollection of it, what Boulder really was. I just wanted to run with Kirk. I didn't know Frank lived there. I didn't know you were there.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to run with Kirk.
Familiarity.
Yeah.
So, how was the recruiting process? Did you sign up and they said come up, or
after the race, my sophomore year, I took second. I got waxed by Danny Aldrich.
In which event?
1500.
Uh-huh.
I qualified for the 800, but I couldn't double back. There was no way.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit before then, Coach Brittenham had, I think Coach Larson and Coach Brittenham had been talking,
Uh-huh.
and they offered me a little bit of a scholarship, so I was pleased to get that, and I went out there.
I suspect that you probably could have gotten more money elsewhere. Because CU was never really...
I had an offer to go to Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
There was an offer to go to Baylor, but I wanted to go with Kirk.
Sure, yeah. So tell me about your CU career. You had some really good performances there, no?
That was something special. That whole town. Everybody who was anybody kind of seemed to get there at one time or another. But the atmosphere, it was real conducive to running. Of course, by then everybody was talking about the altitude training and you know, the benefits of that, which definitely there are.
What year was it you went there?
76.
76, okay. Yep. And what performances are you most proud of as a CU buff, both cross country and track?
I was second man for our team at the NC2As in cross country. I wasn't an All-American, but I ran well. It's extremely cold. I was 77th, I think. It wasn't a fantastic time.
How'd the team do?
Team, I think we were 4th or 5th.
Okay, competitive.
Yeah,
sure.
The team was filled with Southern California people. You know.
Who else was there?
Let's see. Kirk was there, but Kirk was injured that year. He was having knee surgery. Mark Spilsbury.
Spilsy, yep.
Yeah, and then we had Mike Buman.
Yep.
Spills is an incredible talent.
Yes.
Of course, he's up here from the LA area.
He had some great times in high school.
I've never seen a guy that could not train and run that fast. But
smart guy too.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Very smart.
But then, of course, we took the Big 8 championship, and we scored real well that year. I think we went 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And
pretty darn good. Almost perfect score.
It was almost perfect.
And I mean, and the conference is nothing to sniff at either. A pretty good conference.
It was.
So.
CU always got to come down to altitude, and that's what helped us.
So tell me about your track performances.
I never really did anything. I went to the Big 8s, but I got taken down. I don't even think I got out of the first round in 1,500 meters. A gentleman by the name of Randy Wilson from Oklahoma.
Yep, remember the name.
I think he doubled and won the 15 and the 8. By that time, I was transitioning to start to do the longer stuff.
Yes, and that's what I was going to ask you about, because you're coming from an 800, 1,500 meter background, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, because you'd already run a marathon or two, you're going to run marathons. So tell me about your first breakthrough marathon.
Wow, that was something special. Yeah, that was the summer of '78. I stayed in Boulder. I didn't go home, and I wanted to run a marathon. I hadn't run one in 2 years, and there was one called the Nike OTC. Great time of year to run ones. You know, early September, fall starting, weather up in Eugene. You know, you could read through Runner's World, and that's where everybody was kind of going. And so I ran a lot, and I did a lot of strength training during that time. Remember, we ran with those the little weights that we made out of PVC pipe, and you know, just stuff like that.
Good stuff, yeah.
Well, the Nautilus.
We were doing weights up to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It was
Like
a
an
lightweight, a lot of reps.
A lot of reps.
Yeah, 8-mile run, finish up the Nautilus.
And I think you guys are ahead.
Yeah.
You know, even though we were somewhat naive, we were ahead of our time doing the Nautilus. And we had an opportunity to do that. For me, it really helped me. So, Nike OTC 1978.
Wow.
Tell me about that race.
It was one of those days, you know how those days are, where everything just, you're hitting on all cylinders. And I found myself right up in the front pack from the get-go.
Now, were you surprised, or what was your reaction?
I was racing. There was no surprise. Kind of surprised when I found myself with Tony at 20 miles. And I know that I knew there were still 6 miles to go, but Tony left me at about 22, and then Lionel passed me. But by that time, we were at like 24, 25 miles. We had already crossed over the bridge back going toward the Hayward Field.
So you trained specifically for the marathon that summer. Did you have any other data points, other races that you did to prepare?
That was it.
That was it?
That was it. I worked at North American Van Lines, humping furniture all day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then, I had to save up $400 for a plane ticket. Didn't have any money for shoes. The Nike Elite was, that was a premier shoe at the time, and that was $35. That was a lot of money.
That's
for
a lot
a pair
of money.
of shoes.
Exactly.
So, Juby had a resole company.
Right.
And we took the spike plate off a pair of track spikes and put a midsole and a waffle bottom. And then that was my set of shoes to go race in.
So you weren't sponsored by Nike? You didn't? No equipment?
Not at that time, no.
Not at that time.
No.
So what was your time and place finish?
2:14, like 43 or 45.
Yeah.
And
Sub 2:15?
yeah. I finished fourth. John Logway passed me on the track the last 50 yards of the race.
So he beat you by a few seconds?
Yeah, but he was 150. I think he was a 150 or 148 or 150 half miler at Rice.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And part of the context of my questions has to do with how you did against your Southern California counterparts as you progressed through your career.
At that point now, the marathon was starting to become the glamour event.
Yes.
Everybody wanted to run a marathon. In that race, let's see, Ron Tabb was in that race. Dave Harper was in that race. A lot of Toads were in that race. And,
how did they do? They did well.
They did well.
They did well.
They did well, but
sub 220.
that was just a breakthrough.
And what was your reaction? Because I mean, that's a huge breakthrough. What was your previous best marathon?
226. I had run 226.
A couple years before.
Yeah, 2 years before it was made.
So what was the reaction that people had to that breakthrough?
How are we going to deal with this guy now? We got to pick him up at the airport.
You got to deal with him now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you feel? I mean, once you finished that, in terms of your place in the running community.
I moved up a few notches. Of course, my roommates, I think it was Spills and Hunts, were the ones that drove me to the airport. And they told each other, how are we going to deal with him now? But both of them ended up running the 214s later on.
Eventually.
A year or two. That's when Peter Thompson, Jeff Hollister, was taking off my shoes in the staging area, putting my gear back on, and they asked me if I wanted to represent Nike, the assistance program, and you got all the shoes, equipment you needed.
Sure.
And they would give you 4 trips anywhere in the world.
Yep.
That was huge.
Yeah.
Huge to everybody. That they had just started sponsoring people, pretty much, and that opened a huge door, being able to travel.
Yeah. So skipping forward to the 1980 Olympic trials, tell me about that race.
I thought I really had a chance of making the team.
How did you qualify?
And why not?
How did you qualify for that? This is interesting.
The 79 was qualifying date, and of course we're going back out to Eugene, and I got sick, and I raced it. Dennis had a great time. We ran his personal best, 2:17, but we had to get a qualifying time. But I ran it sick with a fever, and I barely made it. I think I made it by a second or two. 3 seconds I made the qualifying time, and I took that year off. I still had my student teaching to do. My eligibility was over, NC2A, so there was no running for CU. So I took the year off to train for the trials. A lot of people did. They bagged everything to make the team. And of course, we're in Boulder. Everybody was trying to make some team, whether it was, you know, the 5,000, the 10, the marathon. And we went out there a week before, out to Buffalo, and I thought I had a chance to make the team. I had an outside chance.
Sure.
If I got one of those days that clicked, I could have possibly made it.
Yeah.
That was an experience racing out there with everybody was good. I mean, there was no mass of people. You know, everybody there was fast. But I developed an sciatic nerve problem at 15K, and it's just like my leg wasn't working. I ran 2:15. So.
And with the problem.
With the problem, I finished 14th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very respectable. And so, what at that point in time was your intention to stick around for the next Olympic trials in '84?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make the Athletics West team.
Uh-huh.
So was it 81 or 80 that we left? I left in January to go out to Eugene. I really wanted to make the Athletics West because at that point there was a stipend to run,
Right.
where you really could take care of all your bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And train.
If you're smart, because the cost of living was pretty minimal at the time for.
I think we rented, Kevin McCurry and I rented a house for $125 a month.
Yeah, you could actually pay for dinner, you know, and pay for groceries with a stipend.
Right.
So tell me about between 80 and 84, did you continue to compete?
Career-ending injury in '83.
83, okay.
But when I got to Eugene, we were doing the marathon, and the times never improved, but it was consistent. Just had to power through to that point where you got that perfect day. I went to China, went to Houston, Amsterdam. I had gone there in Boulder. Well, that was the only race I ever dropped out of.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because you have some photographs from some of those races that are pretty memorable. But what I liked about the photos is that your body language is so positive.
Well, I started to get a man body.
Uh-huh.
It was starting to leave the real thin.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
My body started to mature.
Yeah. And but what was the career-ending injury in '83?
Cracked a heel bone. I had gone to China and raced. That was a survival run. 2:18:12.
Mm-hmm.
The first Beijing International Marathon. Hot, humid. Start at 12 o'clock. Just not conducive to good times, but international racing. And came back from there, and everybody wanted to run New York. So I had gone to Houston the year before. Went to New York, got into Central Park, and Central Park is not easy. And
Mm-hmm.
I ran 2:16:12.
Was that your last major marathon?
That was my last major one.
Uh-huh.
I left New York, came back to train